This week we're working on a bunch of different combat effects, including the ability to set a bunch of things on fire. I've kind of been in need of a bit of work on the combat system, so I'm kind of glad to be getting started with that, now that the Android support is done. This is a game about exploration and discovery in a high fantasy world. You discover things, collect items, kill monsters, and the more exciting ways you have to kill monsters, the better, you would have thought. So I'm thinking one thing I'd like to try and do this week is the status afflictions. So that's like being burnt or being set on fire, or they're the same thing, or like being frozen, or, you know, all that Pokemon stuff. So part of the reason is that this week's a bit weird because I'm doing this half marathon at the end of the week, and that's going to be on the Sunday, but I basically need a full day to edit this video, so that's going to take up Saturday, and it's currently Thursday. So once again, I have 2 days to try and squeeze out a bit of work. But the one main advantage is that if we were to consult my GitHub page, ignore that one. Hey, there it is. Now the problem is it doesn't work for the same reason that the unit tests are failing, which is that my shader is apparently broken. But we have progress, and we've essentially achieved the GitHub CI builds. So I'm actually chuffed at that. Nice and bang in the middle. So we start the week by being able to show and hide the player radius. That seems like it doesn't really mean much, but that's pretty cool. Look at this, gradual damage on that poor goblin over there. Look at the poor guy, losing all that health to nothing. So he's currently got his on fire component switched on, and it runs out after a certain time. So the way I've set it up is you have the component here. So it represents a total lifetime and then the current time of like how long the component's actually been active for. Essentially, if time passes lifetime, then the component removes itself. So the enemy's kind of red at the moment, and then once the status affliction ends, they go back to being the regular color. So that's kind of fun. I mean, it helps to sell the effect. Essentially, I'm just doing this function to poll whether something changes in the status affliction, and when it's applied here, it will just change the colour. The idea is that you should be able to have multiple of these things as well. So say you're burnt and frozen, then it would do some sort of interpolation of the colours to figure out what the final diffuse should be. I don't really know how you'd be both frozen and burnt at the same time, but we'll figure that out. So this is going to be my flame box. So I've actually got a nice sprite sheet, which I stole from Minecraft. This isn't going to be in the final game, because I think that would actually be illegal. But I just had to spend ages figuring out how to write a script that would dump all of the different stages of a GIF out into a different image file, and then merge them together into a texture atlas afterwards. Like, it just took a long time. Actually, my light's not on. That looks correct. Okay, sadly, I think I've come up against a real problem here. So the thing is, what I want to do is I want to be able to stick my flame texture in this box, have it be transparent, and then also animate through all the individual stages, which are all of these different frames. Now, the problem is, I'm actually not convinced I'm able to do that, because I only have options in this material system to animate things like that using this scale and offset thing in detail diffuse. Now, this is just like stuck on top of the regular diffuse map, and that all works fine. What I want to do is then discard the alpha channel, and I'm not convinced I can do that here, because then there's also this like main diffuse. I mean, look, here's an example. If I was to apply the texture here and just get rid of this thing entirely, so the transparency is actually working there, then it should look correct, and it does. There we go. So that's what I would expect it to look like. My option would be not having a sprite atlas and loading every single texture in individually and animating it that way. I really don't want to have to do that. I really, really don't want to have to do that. So if I put line drawing back, I bet it's going to be drawing a box wrong as well. Yeah, look at that. Look, it's completely wrong. It's annoying because it's like little things like this. Like, I don't have that much time this week to get any of this stuff working. Like, I already said I'd start editing this video on Saturday. And I'm still doing development. So it's just, things just aren't working. They're not working. And I'm going to need to figure out how to animate a sprite sheet. Like, I just can't believe that there's no option to do that. So I could just animate the individual frames. Gosh, I just fucking do that. I've actually had enough today. I'm just going to do that. So it's going through, it's formatting, setting it as a texture. And then there's a few frames at the end that just don't seem to get mentioned at all. It kind of looks okay for a sec. And then it gives up for a bit. Ah! Oh shit. Yeah, it's because, look, it's frame 0, whatever. Okay, it didn't look too dodge. So as much as it will flash when it first loads the textures in, once they're loaded, it will behave as I expect. Right, That's more like what I wanted. I'm still not convinced my depth writing is actually working. Oh, it's because I've set it to depth right true. There we go. Oh my god, look how much better it looks now. Aside from the flashing. If we just look at what the effect looks like now, you can see. I kind of like it. I've still got this problem. I thought I'd just be able to ignore it, but it's really annoying. Where when you first, the first enemy you attack before the textures are loaded in, you see how it's kind of flashing in and out? That's just because all the textures aren't loaded. So let's end this video here because it's Monday of the week after when the video is supposed to go out. So this is the real benefit of having an entity component system, because I can just tack a bunch of other stuff onto a bunch of other stuff. So if I start to attack the enemy now, hey, look at all that fire that gets produced. Because actually, all of these different trees are entities in and of themselves. So you can just produce fire wherever you want. I mean, it looks really good. It really does remind me of Minecraft. There's probably a reason for that. But I mean, look at that. Even the flowers can catch fire. If you really want to be an arsonist in this game, then you can just go ahead and do that. But all of like the trees and stuff over here do still exist. They're just not kind of created up to that point. So you can set stuff on fire that actually doesn't even exist yet. Because I think it'll be quite a sort of special move that would allow you to do stuff like this. Because it is quite powerful. And there's also no other things like the fire can't spread, or if the player walks through the fire, they don't get hurt or anything like that. So there are some things that maybe I should have to think about, but I did my half marathon over the weekend, which is why this video is slightly late. It was great though. I really enjoyed it. And I only just started getting into running starting this year, so I want to do like loads more of it. My friend just did an ultra marathon, so I'm gonna build up to doing one of those one day, I think. You know, for now, small steps. Just like this game. One day it's gonna be big. So yeah, sorry the video didn't go out yesterday. That's just kind of my life at the moment. Stuff is happening. So yeah, see you in the next one.